Hi guys, first of all, I want to say that almost everything in this video is good news. So that's good news right there, but I want to show you something interesting. As many of you know, Viltrox have become a premium lens manufacturer. These two lenses right here are from their Pro line for APS-C, the 27mm f1.2 and the 75mm f1.2. And these two things are as good as Sony G-Master lenses. So you can get G-Master lens quality on your APS-C cameras, but it comes from Viltrox. But did you know that Viltrox also has a budget line for the people who are more budget conscious? Not that these things are super expensive, but we do have an excellent budget line. And take a look at this. These are 3 lenses from that budget line. And do you notice anything about them? Let me just move these 2 big boys from behind. Look at these lenses. They are exactly the same size because they use the same housing on these lenses. One of these lenses is a 40mm full frame lens, one is a 20mm full frame lens, and one is a 56mm APS-C lens. But they save a lot of cost by using the same body for the lenses and just changing the glass elements inside, and they pass those savings on to the consumer. And what a savings it is. All 3 of these lenses are under $200, and the one I want to talk about today is this one right here. This is the 56mm f1.7, and you can get this thing for $180. And is it worth $180? Yeah, absolutely. It's a great lens. Let's talk about it. Now, it is no secret that I absolutely love what the fine folks over at Viltrox are doing with their lenses right now, so if they offer me a lens for review, I am happy to do that, but please bear in mind that they did send this lens to the channel at no cost to myself, so let that factor in where it may, but I will just show you the tests and the charts and the results, and then you can decide for yourself if this 56mm f1.7 is worth $180 to you. Most people will like to use a 56mm focal length for portraits, head and shoulder shots. You know, you get that nice pretty face in the foreground, and then you can blur out that background if that suits your taste, and at 1.7 you can definitely blur out that background. This is close to the full frame 85mm focal length that a lot of portrait photographers prefer. Of course, you can use a 56mm for much more than portraiture. You can do street photography without having to get too close to your subjects. You could stay far away from the action like I do because I'm shy and I go off in the shadows like a creep and I take my snappy snaps. So you can do that with a 56mm. It's also good sometimes for food photography. Stand back a little bit and then you can get a really nice tight shot on the food, put it up on your Yelp or wherever you write your reviews, your scathing reviews of the restaurant you just went to. Personally, I do like this focal length for street photography because I get to stand back. People don't really know what I'm taking a photo of. It's not too intrusive, and I feel free. We all want to feel free, don't we? And look at how small this lens is. You attach this to a small APS-C camera, and then it is just not very noticeable at all as you walk around taking your photos. But since we're on the subject of how small and lightweight it is, let's talk about the build quality. It is dead simple. It is just a plastic lens with a plastic focus ring, which does turn very, very smoothly. It has no rubber gasket on the back for weather sealing, but it does have a USB-C port, and Viltrox does provide updates. I've already updated this lens myself. No trouble at all with that USB-C port. It has a 52mm filter thread and comes with a small plastic petal lens hood, which is surprisingly sturdy for its size. But let's get to the important stuff, which is how the lens actually performs. And this lens performs quite excellently in many regards. Sharpness being the first one. Very sharp lens. In the center, sharp, and even down at f1.7. Sharp in the center and sharp in the corners. You don't often see that with a portrait lens, that it stays sharp across the entire frame, but this one definitely does. I have no trouble stopping this down to f1.7 to take a nice sharp portrait, and that is what I want to use this lens for the majority of the time. Now, none of that sharpness is going to matter unless your photo is in focus. I got more good news here. The focus is fantastic on this lens. It is a stepping motor, but it is very quick and responsive, especially if you are in AFC, continuous autofocus in the Sony cameras. It's just quick to grab, no hesitation, no flutter. If you are tracking your subject, it tracks it very, very well. Now, most of the time, the focus is dead silent. You won't hear the motors at all as you take your photos. However, if you are focusing from very close to very far away, you will hear some small motor focus noise as it is shifting from close to far away. And if you are in really low light conditions, sometimes you can hear the focus motors in that particular case. But absolutely nothing to complain about. Normally, dead silent, once in a while, a little tiny bit of focus motor noise. Let's talk about chromatic aberration. The CA is excellently controlled on this lens. You basically have to put it in the worst case scenario and lift your shadows entirely, zoom in 300%, and even then, you can't really see any chromatic aberration, maybe a tiny hint of it, and that can be easily removed in post. So I'm going to give this a gold star for lateral chromatic aberration. And longitudinal chromatic aberration, the LOCA, that is the areas in the foreground or the background that are out of focus. When you see color casts on those, that is LOCA. That is very hard, if not impossible, to remove in post, and I'm happy to say this lens does an excellent job with that as well. Now, I didn't expect that. I thought the regular lateral chromatic aberration would be good, but I thought it would struggle with the LOCA. But even down at 1.7, there is barely any LOCA at all, and once you stop it down to, say, f2 or 2.8, it's completely gone. So I am very impressed with the longitudinal chromatic aberration control. With the bokeh, you see wonderful, creamy, out of focus backgrounds, which of course you're going to want when you have a portrait lens. This does not disappoint. Viltrox is very good at their bokeh quality, especially as of late, and this lens, no exception. Fantastic. When it comes to the bokeh balls, nice and clean. Clean balls on this lens. They are round in the center towards the edges of the frame. You will get those oblong shapes and the cat's eyeing, but I think that looks really, really good when it comes to portrait photography. That is a personal taste thing, but I have no complaints about the bokeh balls. Now, a weak point with this lens, I think, is the Sunstars. They don't look fantastic on this lens. They are kind of messy, and I don't think they add much to the photos. So if you're somebody who wants a lot of Sunstars in your 56mm photos, then this lens is probably not for you. With flare and ghosting, I think the flares are pretty good. They are well controlled, nothing to worry about there. But with the ghosting, sometimes you see a lack of contrast if the sun hits the lens in the right way, or the wrong way, I should say. You can get a lack of contrast in your image. So I would say keep the lens hood on if you are shooting directly into bright lights or the sun, and then you should be fine. Even without corrections, distortion is very mild on this lens. Now, vignetting is pretty heavy on the lens at 1.7 if you don't have your camera corrections turned on. But if you're using Lightroom or any kind of photo editing, you can just use the profile that will correct this lens in one click if you are shooting with your raw photo. So I don't consider the distortion or vignetting any issue whatsoever. So what we have here is a portrait lens that performs absolutely wonderfully in almost every area that counts when it comes to a portrait lens, and it is for $180 and from a company that I have come to love and trust very much when I buy my lenses. So to me, I think this lens is more than worth $180. But let me know down below what you think. Do you think this Viltrox is worth $180, or would you perhaps pay more and get the Sigma 56mm f1.4? That lens is the king of the hill when it comes to the portrait photography focal length of the APS-C cameras, and that still, I think, is the best portrait lens that you can buy at that focal length because of that 1.4 and that amazing Sigma quality. But that lens is around $500, and this one is almost as good and is $180. So again, like I said, let me know down below what you think. We'll have a nice little chat about it. Hey, thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon, okay? Bye-bye.